What up, world? This is the GoalNet recording live here from outside Chicago. Today's video is comparing the Axis 2 goal pad here on our left with the CCM EFlex 6 here on the right. So maybe you live under a rock, maybe you're not the most hardcore of gear people, maybe you're just getting into goaltending. Don't want to dig up an old divorce, but I do think it merits mentioning. The Axis 2 is the second generation pad, what I would call the stiffer pad family, and the EFlex 6 is the second generation, more flexible pad, if you want to call it that, or line with knee rolls, line without knee rolls. But anyway, when I'm saying second generation, these are both two iterations after CCM and Lefebvre split up. So we had Axis 1, now we have Axis 2. We had EFlex 5 and EFlex 6. Why do I think that's an important preface in this video? Because I think CCM has really started to come into their own, find their own airspace, and they are now doing very much their own unique product. And the same exact thing can be said by True by Lefebvre. You know, the PX and the Hazardous line definitely have some new features on it. So I just feel like that bears mentioning because I feel like both of these CCM pads are truly good efforts from CCM around creating their own product post Lefebvre. Trying to get into the specifics of who did what, who designed what, you know, post or during the end of the Lefebvre CCM era isn't worth mentioning. Probably may never touch on that topic again. I know it's very much a hot button, but anyway, for this review, I really think it is something to keep in mind when looking at this gear. So first and foremost, my pads are custom. They are custom ordered to my spec. Neither one of them perfectly matches what you will get in the retail store. So I will do some side-by-side comparisons, but please bear with me. The EFlex 6 is quite a bit different. The Axis 2 is pretty close to what you will get in the store. As the current EFlex 6 and Axis stands, if you do order these products customized, you can get them where they are very similar. But if you buy them in the retail store, there are going to be some differences, and that's what we're here to talk about. So it's really cool if you like to get new gear every year, you can get a pad that's going to feel pretty similar. But if you're buying pads in the store, then you will have two distinct choices in gear. So if we focus about what's different with these pads, the first and foremost are the knee rolls. So as you can see, the EFlex 6 here has the molded knee rolls, which debuted on the EFlex 5. What's different for this iteration though is that the graphic goes through the middle of the knee roll. On the EFlex 5, that did not exist, and you had an exposed knee roll. Purpose of that was to highlight the molded technology, which should help deaden the puck, make it feel a bit more like a traditional goal pad versus here on the Axis, we have no knee rolls. Secondly, which we can't see in the video, is what's beneath the surface. The Axis has the max rebound foam, which is designed to shoot the puck off the goal pad. So you picture a hard slapper from the top of the circle, should hit your pad and go off the boards. The EFlex 6 has the control foam in it, and that's designed to be the right size rebound, is the best way to put it. So if it's a hard shot like the example in the Axis, it should hit your goal pad and go far away. It won't quite have as much pop as the Axis 2. However, Axis 2 is designed to get every shot away from you as quickly as possible. With the EFlex line and the control rebound, the design is that a soft shot should hit your pad and stop in front of you for a quick cover-up. I wouldn't necessarily say one of those is better than the other. They both have their pluses and their minuses. That's really a matter of preference. But what's really cool is if we think about what's different between EFlex and Axis, we have the molded knee rolls, which help deaden the puck. Very traditional concept. And then in EFlex, we also have puck hits you in the shin. You could potentially cover it for a quick rebound on a softer shot. Those both harken to years past. There's, lots of arguments why people might still want them. but very key differentiations within the pads. One feature which I do not have, which would come stock on these pads, is you will get the brake right there below the knee on the stock pad. I have no brakes internally or externally on these pads. So you'll get an external brake on the EFlex 6 and an internal brake, so that'll give you a lot more flex from the knee up. Versus on the axis here, the stock pad has a brake internally, none on the external. I have no brakes anywhere, so this pad as well is stiffer from the knee up. And then one other subtle feature are the rolls itself. So if you take a look here, this is an angled roll. So flat would be there, and you can see how we're getting the gap. And the EFlex line has the more traditional squared up roll. Oh, pads are tied together. But as we take a look at this, we can see that is a perfectly flat roll. So another differentiator between the EFlex line and the Axis line. Last key thing I want to talk about with these pads before we flip over to the strapping and the sliding area are the cores itself. If you followed any of my content for a while, or maybe you're discovering my page for the first time and clicking through the videos, you may have heard me say the core is the pad. A lot of people can get distracted by the graphics, the landing surface, the knee rolls, the strapping. The most crucial part that can differentiate two different pad lines is what you can't see. That's beneath the surface. That is the pad's core. And even though, as I mentioned, you can get these pads if you want to customize them. You can make a flexible Axis or a stiffer EFlex. Maybe you like one graphic, you like the look. You won't be able to change the core of the pad. The Axis 2 line has the light X core, and the EFlex 6 line has the dual light core. The dual light core is designed to be a bit more flexible. The light X core is designed to be a bit stiffer. So just in summary, everything in the face of the pads: knee rolls versus no knee rolls, triangular outer roll versus square outer roll, max rebound plus versus the control rebound, the core with the light core versus the dual light core. And those are the basic overviews. So might not see it in the store, there's a lot there. Both these pads will come with a soft, flexible boot as the stock option, but this is another subtle difference which you can't really change when we talk about customizing them to be the same. This pad here has CCM's shallow boot, so basically from left to right going across, the pad is basically flat. This traditional boot channel here is almost completely flat. If we take a look at the EFlex, if you watch my finger, you can see it sort of drops off a little bit, and the yellow highlighted area here actually forms a deeper boot. If you take a look at my fingers, we're about a fingernail depth there. We are no depth there. We are completely flat. So this is CCM's deep soft boot versus the shallow soft boot. So each boot will have a lot of flex in it, but the difference is the Axis 2 should sit on top of your skate a little bit more, and the EFlex 6 should rest on top of your skate a little bit more. This is not the old days with a really, really deep boot, but it is a subtle difference where a very particular goalie in, say, like the RVH might notice a difference. For reference, here's a boot flex, and here's our other boot flex. Here's the other boot flex. As you can see, both pads are very flexible. It's just the actual shape and how it touches your skate which changes. When we flip the pads over is where they start to get a bit more similar. A lot of technology that debuted on the Axis 2 was then ported over to the EFlex 6 when it got refreshed a year later. But there is one key difference on the back I'll touch on before I go over the similarities. And that is, if we look inside, so here's the calf plate on the inner gusset sliding area. If we look here, you see this black material. There's a molded foam pad on this leg pad to help absorb impact and keep your leg raised up. So as you can see, when I put this next to the knee block, you know, there's a 2-finger gap between what touches the ice and where your leg sits, versus on EFlex 6, we have nothing. So there's no real gap between there. And if we look at the pad up here, you can see it is completely flush. There's no finger gap up there. And if we unvelcro it, you can probably see this even easier. No pad, just Velcro. Versus when we open this up, you can see this molded piece here and how spread apart my fingers are, versus here, they're in on either side. So that's probably the biggest difference on the back or inner side of the pads. Once we get past that, both pads have the DRS knee system. They have the quick motion strapping 2 version, and they both come stock with a tight fit leg channel. If you need a bit more of a deep dive on that, check out my video that already exists doing the overview of the Axis 2 and the EFlex 6. Again, real quick in summary, same technology is the knee block here, where you have no seam on the knee block. It's connected. You have the molded landing surface, the DRS Pro system as CCM calls it. You're gonna have the tight fit leg channel for the depth, and you're gonna have the quick motion 2 strapping system. What's different is that Axis 2 has the additional molded pad inside the calf surface. Now on to the blockers. Like I mentioned, wrapping up the pad segment where we touched on the quick motion 2 and the DRS, other videos do exist. Not trying to be difficult saying, hey, go click on another video, but do want to keep these as concise and on topic as possible. These videos can tend to get a bit long. So for specific features on either of these blockers, go check out the specific videos for Axis and EFlex 6. We're going to focus on the differences here. So for all intents and purposes, these blockers are basically the same blocker. They feature the light core for the blocker board inside, an axe suede palm. The sidewall's similar, the blocker cuff is the similar. When you buy them stock, the only difference is going to be the finger protection. So I like what CCM calls the straight finger protection. So that's this piece comes down straight. What's stock on Axis 2 is what CCM calls the angled fingered protection. And this piece is sort of on a round curve. That system definitely gives you a bit more protection, but I also find that it's a bit over-engineered and can interfere with how I like to hold my stick. So I go with the straight finger protection there. So it's open, but if you take a look, you know, you can see the palms on these 2 blockers are the same. You've got the Velcro on the outside, you have the Velcro on the inside, that is the same. When we talk about the back side of the sidewall, very similar to the Axis goalie pad. Each blocker has a molded foam piece here. This blocker's a bit out of shape. I like to wear it nice and loose, but just to show they look the same. And then standard is the axe suede here, and then black, and just from tradition, it's what I've always used. I get the Sure Grip overlay. There's gonna be a black axe suede, I believe, is stock, and then the option, which I believe CCM used to call tight fit, is standard, and another blocker custom, you can get them loose. So basically speaking, the blockers between them are the same, and really the only thing that's different between them, this is stock on the EFlex 6, and then if you go into the customizer, you can get them loose, you can get the palm that I have, and then the other option, both blocker palms are centered, so located balanced in the center of the board, but you can get the offset one, which gives you a little bit more coverage down, puts your hand higher up in the board. And next we'll focus on the gloves. All right, so here we are talking about the gloves to close out today's video. And much like the blockers, the construction of these 2 gloves is the same. Really, the only difference is the break angle. So I would call these gloves 5x1, being CCM's new construction where it's 5 for 590 or 580. The X represents the 8 or the 9. and then the 1 at the end of the gloves, just differentiating them from the old 580 and 590. If you checked out the other videos, completely new construction system. If you're not familiar with what's new, go check out either of those videos. But we'll just do a quick overview of the similarities here. So in terms of what is stock in the retail store, like I talked about with my pads, these are custom. Stock on both gloves will be the double T. I'm a traditionalist. I like the single T. And for my money, this is the best single T on the market. Look how thick that is. And then it also is actually reinforced with plastic. So there's a really wicked snap when you catch a puck cleanly. I also opt for skate lace, and the nylon webbing will be standard. So pockets completely different on my gloves. Other than that, I did not change anything. If you take a look at the internals, you'll see there is the gray Axe suede inside here. So you can see right inside there, it's beige, and then we get a bit of a color change. If you look at where the light is, where my finger is, that is gray. That's going to be that same grip material, which is on the blocker in the palm, which I customize. You can also order the whole glove with this softer, more traditional suede feeling. Both gloves are going to have the cross-form strapping, so big fan of this strapping system. Locks the back of your hand in pretty cleanly without the wrist strap, so you get some increased mobility. So really like that. The one thing I would say which is polarizing, which is on both of these gloves, is the removal of the traditional finger stalls. One option which came on the Axis 2 after I got my glove, which is also available on the 581, which I do have, are the index finger and pinky loop. I strongly recommend, if you're getting either one of these gloves, make sure you get it with the loop, because it makes a world of difference in terms of your hand sitting inside the glove and getting a little bit more of the traditional leverage you need to close it. After using both of these, like I mentioned a moment ago, I do really enjoy the cross-form strap. I think given the choice, I would still prefer traditional finger stalls. So something like a 580 glove with a cross-form strap would work well for me, as opposed to a 581 glove with the cross-form strap. Picking between the two, this is the 591 based on the traditional 590. And this is the 581 based on the 580 gloves, so the 60 and 90 degree breaks. Interestingly enough, with the traditional gloves, if you gave me a choice, I would take 580. With the new break, if you gave me a choice, I would actually take the 591 with the pinky stalls. So for whatever reason, just the shape of this glove fits my hands a little bit better. My particular model, as I mentioned, is like a mitten inside, so there's no finger stalls in here. I do find it a little bit awkward to close. First, the 581 at least has the loops, so although I like the shape of the other one better, I have much more control holding the glove and closing it. So my middle two fingers are loose and floating like a mitten, and then my index finger and my pinky have a loop. But generally speaking, if you check out the backhands, you'll see, they are almost exactly the same. They both have this little articulated cuff piece, so it really is sort of the same old, in the 580 and the 590 and the 600 were all sort of the same construction. It was just what glove break you want. Very much the same here. As you can see, you're going to get the additional palm padding in the 5X1 construction. The only difference, again, is the break on these two gloves. So thanks for tuning into this video, which was comparing the Axis 2 to the CCM EFlex 6. As I mentioned a couple times, sorry if this is getting a little repetitive. There are other specific videos breaking down the features of the Axis 2 and the features of the EFlex 6. So if you want an explanation of what the technology is on each pad, please go check that out. If you want a review, the Axis 2 review exists. The EFlex 6 review will be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. If there's anything I didn't touch on, please throw a question down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is the Goal Net signing out.